Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
We are talking about Eli Lilly. This stock surging after data showed its experimental weight loss pill worked as well as the Ozempic shot, bringing it one step closer for developing a needle-free alternative. So let's get the details from Bloomberg News healthcare reporter Damian Garde. He's here in Garde, who's here in studio. Damian, good to have you here. Off and running shares of Eli Lilly. I think it's the top gainer in the S&P 500, up something like 16% right now.
Which is a massive gain. I mean, just to note, this is already a very expensive stock. Lilly has flirted with becoming the first $1 trillion drug company in market cap, which I don't think they're there yet, basically based on the theory that they can corner the market by consistently kind of out-innovating themselves in the race for these hot obesity medicines that everybody talks about. So to the news today, they had pivotal data from a late-stage study showing that their pill, an oral treatment, looks like it works about as well as the injectable Ozempic made by its rival Novo Nordisk, at least in patients who have type 2 diabetes. And this was closely watched because despite it being a relatively smaller study and it being diabetes and not obesity, everybody is looking at the read-through of what is the weight loss number. Mm-hmm. And if this is a pill that you take once a day,
hallelujah,
that can do what a weekly injection can do, that is, again, like a holy grail product in this market.
A couple things. You said it's not yet a $1 trillion company. They want to be. It's $811 billion. That's the market cap right now. Today's move higher, a whopping 16%. A pill versus an injection. And look, I don't like needles. A lot of people don't like needles. Paul Sweeney was on earlier today talking on Bloomberg Intelligence, talking on surveillance. He says he's administered this shot. He says it's no big deal. His question was more about, what about side effects here? That seems to be more of a barrier, at least in his experience.
That's true. So for people who can get over the needle aspect, which is definitely true for people who have type 2 diabetes, and we're finding out based on the demand for these medicines that it's true for people who want to lose weight as well. The side effect issue is all gastrointestinal, or at least those are the most common and the most vexing for people. So looking, and again, this is something scientists say never to do, and do it anyway, a cross-trial comparison, which is looking at Lilly's data and comparing it to what we saw with Ozempic's published data. I would say they're relatively comparable. The rates of, you're talking about vomiting, diarrhea, I apologize, maybe this is not the tone we usually shoot for on this show, and nausea. In some cases, they were a little higher with Lilly's pill. In some cases, they were higher with the injections. But I think the reaction right now is that they look pretty similar. But I guess that could end up being the barrier in the future if and when this product is approved and we kind of remove the needle aspect. It's, are you comfortable being one of the 10 to 15% of people who experience those side effects?
I see.
Because I know of people who've like moved around because they have really bad side effects from certain drugs. They're not necessarily apples to apples. There's some variances. I mean, Novo's down about 7%. Should Novo be worried?
Yes, I mean, there's an argument that, so Lilly and Novo have been the two giants of this market, Novo being based in Denmark, Lilly being based in Indiana, and they've both been focused on diabetes for, I mean, in Lilly's case, more than 100 years, dating back to like the initial synthesis of insulin. And so they've been fighting one another in this place for basically the entirety of their corporate histories. These data today and Lilly's trajectory, maybe this is unfair, but it feels like they have kind of outgamed Novo in this market. Novo obviously has, the major product in the form of Ozempic, but Lilly has an injectable medicine that works a little bit better than Ozempic and now appears to be knocking on the door of having a pill.
What's the next, when we think about pipelines, this stuff takes years. That's why the startup biotech companies are so volatile. If we're thinking about the pipeline, a pill is sort of the next iteration. That's the golden goose. That's what people are going for. What's next after that?
So it's interesting because everybody has kind of differentiated.
You just breathe in. You spray something and just go. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
a mist would not be so bad.
It's not impossible, I think, scientifically as well. But barring the aerosolization of GLP-1 medicines, which I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
So both Lilly and Novo and a few other companies, including AstraZeneca, are kind of moving in parallel tracks where there is the move to develop oral medicines that might lead to a little less weight loss but would be more accessible and more able to produce and cheap to produce. And then there's a next generation of injectables that appear to, at least so far, have even stronger effects on body weight. So 20 to 25% body weight loss versus the smaller numbers we see. And the theory is that by, let's say, the end of the decade, if all these things work, it would be kind of like an armamentarium for people looking for treatments. For people who have obesity such that losing 25% of their body weight is medically necessary for their health, you would have the kind of like big guns. This is all a little crude, but the more efficacious injectable treatments. Yeah. And then for people for whom a smaller percentage body weight treatment is more desirable, or who perhaps just need to maintain loss that they got from one of those drugs, you would have the pills.
So kind of a menu of drugs, right?
Exactly.
Essentially. Hey, Eli Lilly is the top gainer in the S&P 500. United Health is the top decliner. I've got to ask, stocks down like 23% here. They cut its annual forecast and reported its first earnings miss in over a decade. What do we need to know about this? Is this also an industry-wide problem because it dragged down the group today?
It does seem like it. The word ominous has been invoked a few times. Now, United Health is difficult to cross-cut because they are this like octopus of healthcare. They do everything short of develop their own medicines. But in terms of insurance, managed care, they are a, arguably kind of monopolistic
supermarket
concern.
Of health,
yeah. And so, but in that sense, they are perceived as a bellwether. So they report earnings. They have this unforeseen issue with their profitability relating to Medicare Advantage, which is sort of a supplementary insurance program. And I think part of the ominous nature of that is the thing they're suffering from is from basically a government crackdown on how Medicare Advantage works that began last year. And you might think that that would alleviate under a new administration, but Dr. Oz, Mehmet Oz, who is stepping into the role of leading the federal agency that runs Medicare, was very fiery in his Senate confirmation hearing about exactly this issue. And so I think some of the stock reaction is not just the shock of, as you mentioned, the superlative of United missing earnings for the first time in a decade, but also that like the storm clouds seem to just still be on the horizon.
Yeah, storm clouds over another industry, like is what it kind of feels like. What?
He can talk about anything.
I know.
Damian Garde can talk about anything. It's like he's been writing about Lilly all day, and you throw him the United Health question, and he knocks it out of the park.
Thank you so much.
Anytime I can talk about Dr. Oz.
Thanks for joining us.
Bloomberg News healthcare reporter Damian Garde.